Market power in competition law is a very special position that is held by a company or a group of companies. According to our act here in Zambia, when a company has, as a single entity, over 30% domination of a market in terms of the goods it sells and what it can do in the market, we say it is a dominant player. Where two or more companies combine their efforts and they go above 60%, the law says they're dominant. It is worse when a company has over 50, 60, 70% as a single company. That in itself gives that company certain responsibilities which we as Ccpc would like to see that company perform, because it will affect the economy one way or another in the decisions that it takes. Well, as a single entity, when its market power is above 30%.
30%.
As a unit of 2 or 3, maybe more, 60% and above.
Okay.
Being a dominant player in the market per se is not illegal.
Okay.
There are many ways in which a company can become dominant. If you've noticed over the years, Microsoft has become dominant in the computer industry because of innovation, creativity. So they've become efficient in their own ways. So you can't say that they're dominant simply because. No, they've been working at it.
Okay.
There are players who become dominant because 2 or 3 firms come together and merge, and then they take a bigger chunk of the market power. So there are many ways. And sometimes companies are taken over and they become dominant. So it's a question of mergers and things like that.
Yeah.
But per se, a company is not going to be said to be acting illegally simply because it's dominant.
Yeah.
What we worry about as Ccpc is the abuse of that dominant position.
Okay.
When you're dominant, you have certain responsibilities to the consumers, to the nation, and to yourself as a company.
Yes.
And when you abuse that, that's the only time that we as the competition commission will move in.
Okay.
That's what we worry about, the abuse of the dominance.
Okay.
There are 2 types of abuse of dominance. The first one is what we might term as exploitative dominance. This is when a company begins to take decisions not caring about what other people in that same market can do, not caring what the customers will do or how that will impact the customers, because they know that without them in that market, nothing can work. So they do what they want and everybody else has to dance. If they've got competitors in that market, the competitors will have to dance to their tune in terms of pricing, in terms of market shares. So it's that kind of thing. The second leg of abuse is where we discuss exclusionary behavior. This is where now a company begins to close certain doors of entry into a particular market because it wants to be alone or to control that particular market alone, in the sense that new entrants to that market become a bit scared to go into the market because of the dominance that this particular player has, or they find it difficult to enter that market. Investment becomes harder and opening of doors and the market becomes even difficult because they have closed the doors because of the rules and demands that they've put within that market. So those are the 2 areas where dominance will attract our attention as the Ccpc. It obviously raises the cost of doing business. I mean, if you have a dominant player in the market,
Yeah.
for example, and they say that in order for you to do or deal with a particular product, you have to meet certain standards which they have set.
Yes.
Obviously, for anybody to go into that market, they have to invest even more. They will not be given the opportunity to grow like that company grew. For the customers, they'll be forced to buy at the price set by this dominant player without having recourse to any alternatives or substitutes,
Yeah.
as the case may be. So it does affect the economy, and that's what we worry about as regulators, because we want to make sure that the playing field is fair and the playing field is transparent,
Yeah.
in all fairness. Dominance is, it has categories and a lot of layers within
Yes.
it. One would be engaging in unfair pricing,
Okay.
where parties do what they want because they think they want to get a bigger chunk of the market. When you impose excessive pricing,
Yes.
we get worried. When you apply disclaimers in your business, we
Yeah.
also get worried. We also get worried when you discriminate amongst people of the same level of business or customers of the same level of business, and you choose to give one preferential treatment
Yes.
as against the other. That worries us. So in terms of abuse, we'll look at that. The other angle would also be the limiting or the restricting of the production in the market area, where a person or a company tries to tie things up. And I'll give you an example. We call this tying and bundling.
Yes.
If I buy my phone, as an example, and then the owners of the phone tell me I can only use a particular charger
For that phone.
for the phone, and I can only use a particular battery for the phone, that's a problem for us.
Yes.
Because what you want from that company is a phone,
Yes.
not the other things they're tying you to, because then they exclude businessmen from coming up with batteries or coming up with chargers,
Yeah.
which they can innovate and create.
True.
And we want to leave other areas surrounding a particular product to other people to innovate and create jobs, as it were. Other people don't see that as a problem, but for competition law, it's a problem. Denying persons access to essential facilities is another. It's a big problem for us.
Yeah.
And then engaging in predatory pricing. I mean, you can't restrict your price and say this or nothing. We worry about such conduct.
Exactly.
And I think we've carried out some raids using some of our inspectors from the council to educate the Zambian people,
Yeah.
especially in Lusaka and the provincial capitals, to know that we will not accept this kind of behavior. So any kind of discriminatory behavior, any kind of behavior that seems unfair,
Yes.
that attracts the CCPC, and we will visit that kind of behavior. Well, the first thing is, when one abuses their dominant position, they are actually being anti-competitive. Now, Zambia, in the 27 years of the First Republic, under the UNIP government, was under what we term as a commandist economy. It was a socialist commandist economy where you had big parastatal companies controlling all the procurement, all the business, and employing everything under one roof, Indeco or Zimco, as the case may be.
Yes.
And they said to Chilanga, you will supply to national housing 60,000 tons of cement. And they said to Nitrogen Chemicals of Zambia, you will supply such and such to Tobacco Board of Zambia for the farmers to grow tobacco. So the procurement and all the business was controlled centrally. With the advent of privatization and the advent of multi-party politics came this plural kind of behavior, even in the business sector.
Yes, sir.
So we have to extrapolate that and move it into the business sector. Now, the only way you can control commandist behavior as in the socialist republic then,
Yeah.
in a capitalist setting such as the one or liberal economy we have as today,
Yes.
is through the competition commission, because then we come in and regulate, see what the players are doing. So the first thing we want to do is we want to see that this anti-competitive behavior is thrown out the window.
Yeah.
It must be a fair playing field,
Yeah.
and everybody must go in there knowing that they can argue their case on innovation, on creativity, and ensure that that is rewarded and their prices will fit the model. The second leg to this side is that one found where players who discriminate, conduct unfair pricing, excessive pricing, will obviously suffer a consequence. Under the Act, we are mandated to fine between 1 to 10% of the annual turnover of the company.
Okay.
So this is something we rarely want to use. We would rather engage the companies, educate them, conduct seminars, and ensure that they understand that this is how they're supposed to behave. But when we find that a player has gone beyond what we'd consider normal,
Yes.
then we are forced to fine so that they are regulated. They understand that this kind of behavior will not be acceptable.
Indeed.
Because, as you understand, the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission has to deal with customers on the other side as well. The consumers are the ultimate people that we want to protect.
Yes.
Because whatever the businessmen are doing on the one side, they're trying to make profit.
Indeed.
From whom? From the consumers. The consumers are in a very weak position. So we have to come in and protect their fighting power. Consumers are in this economy very powerful if they are united, and very powerful if they are knowledgeable, very powerful if they know how to use that information about the company which they want to protest about or complain about.
Yeah.
So consumers are a very important aspect to us because we want to ensure that they are not discriminated against.
Okay.
We want to ensure that they're not unfairly treated. We want to ensure transparency, and that's the hallmark of competition law.
Yeah.
So the consumers will have a say, but mostly because they are knowledgeable. And the problem with competition law in Zambia is it's relatively new,
Yes.
and people don't seem to quite understand part of what we actually do. Even some of the companies that we bring to the commission or are complained about and are brought to the commission by people, some of them begin to ask, but why are we here? Because we have to now to get to a
explain
point
to
of educating them to
Yeah.
say, in this kind of economy, we regulate
Exactly.
every sector of the economy, and we want to see fairness,
Yeah.
and competition must prevail. So that's what we look for. Well, let me start off by saying that we had a very fruitful discussion with the management of Zambia Sugar. When the Ccpc did its investigation, which lasted 4 years, I might add,
Really.
they came up with findings, and Zambia Sugar was given the initial findings. Zambia Sugar management asked to meet the board,
Yes.
which I chair, and we discussed the issue, and we thought it was prudent that we listen,
Yeah.
owing to the special position that Zambia Sugar occupies in Mazabuka.
Yes.
It's the biggest industry, it employs a lot of people, and we understand that the economy in Mazabuka is affected by Zambia Sugar. So we said, let them come. So the board met Zambia Sugar. Now, there were 4 main allegations against Zambia Sugar. The first one was that they were discriminating between and amongst category A of their customers. In other words, Zambia Sugar said, if you're in this category, you should be buying 1,000 tons of sugar
Yes.
or more. That's category number 1. Category number 2 was where they said, A and B customers. These are like household
Yes.
customers, and then the industrial customers.
Mhm.
Then they were charged with unfair pricing between customers in the Great Lakes region
Yes.
as well as those in Zambia. I mean, against those in Zambia.
Mhm.
Then obviously there was unfair pricing between industrial, household sugar, and the Zambian consumers. Now, in each of these categories,
Mhm.
we could have fined Zambia sugar
Yes.
in each of them
Separately.
separately. But when the managing director, I forget the madam's name,
Yes.
and her entire management team came through,
Mhm.
we heard them and we realized the importance of Zambia sugar.
Mhm.
And we also realized that we had to be cautious in the manner we treated Zambia sugar.
Yeah.
But a wrong is a wrong. As an example, in Group A, Category A, those that were buying above 1,000 tons,
Yes.
Zambia Sugar had two companies,
Mhm.
Zambia Breweries
Yes.
and Varun Industries
Yes.
on the one side, as an example. And then you've got Trade Kings, Musa Bakery, Avisco, and all these other Zambian companies on the other side.
Mhm.
The price difference between Zambia Breweries and Varun on the one side, in the same category,
Yes.
was between 5 to 19%.
That is a huge margin.
It is. And we asked the board, I mean the management of Zambia Sugar, why this disparity?
Mhm.
They went into economic theories, but discrimination is discrimination. And we said to them, we can't allow you to do this
Mhm.
because it's impacting the economy. And the economy was impacted greatly when Trade Kings, for example, moved one of its factories for the sweets.
Yes.
I don't know what to call those big monster things.
The monster sweets.
Yes, they moved that factory to South Africa because the sugar, which is the biggest component there,
Mhm.
was too expensive for them. Now, you can't tell me that in category A, they're all buying above 1,000 tons of sugar.
Mhm.
You charge different prices to a differential margin,
Yes.
such as 19%.
Mhm.
It didn't make sense to us.
Mhm.
And we asked the management of Zambia Sugar to justify that. Obviously, they couldn't.
Mhm.
It became a problem for the commission because we realized there must be something more than we're seeing,
Mhm.
and they couldn't give us the facts.
Yeah.
So we just thought this is discrimination.
Mhm.
But you also want to know that in this category, Trade Kings was buying more volumes of sugar than anyone else. So, in simple economic terms, they were supposed to receive discounts
Yes.
because of the volume of trade they were giving Zambia Sugar. Zambia Sugar did not give them the discounts. They charged them more for buying more. And the other two companies that I've mentioned, Zambia Breweries and Varun, for instance,
Yes.
bought less than Trade Kings. They were given a lower price,
Mhm.
even in economic terms. That didn't make sense to us.
Indeed.
So we thought, no, there's something wrong here. When we bring it down to the customer level, remember the production line for sugar is the same.
It's the same, yes.
So once you've got your costs invested in there, you're not investing anything more because the chain of production is the cane.
Mhm.
And then the cane comes through whatever happens to
Processing
this
plants.
sugar as it's squeezed, that is brought, the end product is on one belt.
Mhm.
Now, what is the distance between Mazabuka and Lusaka, or the Copper Belt, as compared to the distance between Mazabuka and the Great Lakes region in Rwanda,
Yes.
in Burundi,
Mhm.
or Kenya, Tanzania? Our sugar costs less up there than it does here.
Mhm.
Again, we ask management. Geographically, the cost of transportation, surely, the Zambians cannot be paying more My
Documentations,
point,
cross-border
import,
payments,
export
yes.
permits and
Yes.
things like that. All that considered, the sugar was costing less abroad. So we thought they would offer us an explanation. Management from Zambia Sugar unfortunately did not.
Yes.
And we found that as another problem. The third one was with regard to some of the conditions Zambia Sugar had enjoyed. One of their main arguments is that sugar in Zambia must be fortified. Now, Zambia Sugar had entered into an IPPA with the Zambian government for 10 years,
Yes.
from 2007 to 2017. And in there, they had argued and government agreed that the Zambian sugar must be fortified with vitamin A.
Yes.
This is a condition they insisted on, government agreed. So it gave them an advantage. Anyone coming onto the scene to produce sugar, like Kafue Sugar now, Kasama Sugar, they have to fortify their sugar.
With vitamin A.
Exactly. We then said, is there a difference between industrial sugar and household sugar? We didn't do the tests. ZABS did. And they found that there was no difference in the sugar. It was all fortified sugar.
Yes.
So it's the same sugar. So why was the Zambian customer paying close to 28% more than the other people in the region?
Yes.
Again, that element of discrimination, that element of unfair pricing, we couldn't get a convincing reason from management of Zambia Sugar. So, like I said, on all these areas, we could have fined Zambia Sugar for each of these violations under Section 16 of our Act. But looking at the special position that Zambia Sugar held, we decided we're just going to fine them on one. That was the discriminatory behavior, where they discriminated against industrial sugar in category A.
Yes.
Where, like I said, Trade Kings bought more, but was charged more instead of enjoying a discount.
Yes.
And this is what happened to most of the Zambian companies. So we found this behavior a bit odd,
Yes.
because we didn't want our industries here suffering whilst supporting other industries elsewhere. And this is why we find them.
That's true.
We appreciate Zambia Sugar as an industry in this country, and we
Yes.
would like them to be fair in the way they compete. But having enjoyed an IPPA for 10 years, where government told them to invest in certain things, which they did, we asked them during the meeting, did government live up to its expectation? They said yes. Everything that government agreed in the IPPA, they performed. They said yes. So we said, then what's the problem? Today, you would like to know that Zambia Sugar doesn't buy electricity from ZESCO.
Really?
No, they manufacture their own electricity at the plant.
Wow.
So part of the investment procedure was that under the IPPA, nothing in the cane goes to waste. So they'll get the sugar out, they'll get the molasses out,
Yes.
then they'll get the fiber or whatever it is
Yes.
to use to make electricity.
Electricity.
So they run the plant without any losses. But the pricing is like the Zambian customers, the Zambian companies must be subsidizing foreign companies. At least that's how it looked to us as a board, and we said that we can't accept. It is our duty as regulators to ensure that the Zambian industries enjoy, the Zambian customers enjoy favorable terms when dealing with a big conglomerate such as Zambia Sugar. That's why we find Zambia Sugar.
Wow.
Most of our market structures in Zambia are what we term in competition law as oligopolies.
Okay.
This is where you have industry dominated by 2 or 3 players, major players, and they can basically decide to connive if they want. They can decide to take any industry, for example. We've got the cement industry.
Yes.
You'll probably find 3, 4 major players.
Yes.
You take the airtime or telephone service providers, you probably find 3 players.
Yes, currently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you find sugar, same. But sometimes people become major players because of statute. For example, Zesco is a creation of statute.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't tell Zesco to do anything because they're dominant.
Mm-hmm.
They're the only people that generate power, distribute it, and sell it to us.
Yes.
So, in that regard, the market forces are not very fair.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Zafico. It's the only company that is allowed to deal with timber.
Timber, yes.
And you've got to, because they're protected by statute.
Mm-hmm.
You've got NAPSA, for instance, dealing with the collection of revenue on behalf of government
Yes.
at the smallest level, but you have to pay your NAPSA. So this is the market within which we operate. And as a growing country, things may change in the future, but in that direction, we are still at a point where the market is concentrated with 2-3 players.
Yes.
And this is where we have to be wary. In the case of sugar, for example, we have Zambia sugar, which is close to 85% dominant.
That's a huge market.
It's a very, very huge market that they control. And you've got Kafua sugar coming up. You've got Kasama sugar coming up.
Yes.
But they don't compare to Zambia sugar. And they can't even claim to compete. They're just growing.
Yes.
So in that regard, when you've got a player such as Zambia Sugar, there are certain responsibilities and obligations that are imposed by competition law and its policies and principles
Yes.
that they should follow. And this is why, in this regard, we treated them as such.
Exactly.
Well, as CCPC, I would just like to sound a warning, a very fair, friendly warning
Yes.
to business entities that come to Zambia and want to do business, but in the process want to engage in cartel behavior,
Yes.
or they want to discriminate against the Zambian citizens, customers, against Zambian companies, take advantage of our friendly investment policies. My warning is this: CCPC will not sit idly by
Indeed.
and watch any foreign company or any local company abuse its position to the detriment of the Zambian customers. CCPC will not stand idly by and watch investors, in inverted commas,
Yes.
come to Zambia, manipulate the Zambian economy to their benefit, and make the Zambian customers suffer detriment because they want to make profit. No. We want fair competition. We want transparency. We want to encourage innovation, creativity, and a very fair pricing on the goods and services that the Zambian people are going to enjoy. That's our mandate. So even in this example, for example, where we are dealing with sugar here, it's not like Zambia Sugar is a bad company. No, but I think certain things have gone on for too long, and they probably thought they can continue at this rate. We're saying no,
Yes.
there must be time for change. We are also, as CCPC, looking into other areas. Like I said, our market is very concentrated. There are lots of complaints now against certain tendering procedures. There are lots of complaints against, for example, the cement pricing. There are lots of complaints against day-old chicks.
Yes.
There are also complaints with regard to milk. There are complaints in many areas. But we can only deal when we have a complainant in front of us. We can't be the complainant, the investigator,
Yes.
and the judge of that. There must be a complainant to come and tell us something is wrong here. We feel you must investigate, or we must be protected. Then we move in. So it's just a friendly warning. I think CCPC is not here to injure business. It is here to regulate, and would rather the business community plays fair in its dealings,
Indeed.
rather than trying to think they can manipulate the system and make more profit at the expense of Zambians.
Indeed. Wow.